Hello, hujambo, bwake, salam, molweni. I'm Tembekile Mkhototo. Welcome to Unwrap Africa, Siakaka. Shortly, we'll take you on a historical tour through Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. But first, our 60-second look at this week's biggest stories from the continent. Violent attacks have claimed the lives of more than 40 people in Nigeria's central Benue state. This is violence that broke out over the weekend. 3 people have died in a fire at a Chevron-operated oil platform offshore Angola. And tributes are still coming in for acclaimed actor, Tsotsi performer Presley Chweneyagae, who passed away earlier this week. And Naomi Oye Ohene Oti has been awarded the 2025 Astor Guardians Global Nursing Award worth $250,000. And our question to you, by the way, this evening, we're asking, it is Child Protection Week, and a lot has been said about the abuse of children in South Africa, many of them, unfortunately, also being found dead in some instances. But we want to know, not just from South Africans, but from the rest of the continent, what can we do? What more can we do to end violence and better protect Africa's children? Let us know by sending a WhatsApp. The number is 078-459-1897. You can also find us on Facebook at SABC Unwrap Africa. On X, we are SABC News_TV. Well, one of our focus points this weekend has to do with Tanzania, and our editor here on Unwrap Africa, Sophie Mokoena, recently traveled to the country, to Dar es Salaam in particular, where she was able to explore some of the beautiful landscapes there, as well as the country's rich history. She was able to speak to SABC News correspondent Isaac Lukando about Dar es Salaam. Have a look.
Isaac, briefly tell us this city. How was this city established? How did it came about that we have Dar es Salaam?
Well, this place is steeped in history because it's sort of like a crossroads of cultures. Over the decades, I would say, and even centuries, there's been a mixing of different cultures. People from different places, from Asia, from the Middle East, came here. People from Europe came here, and the locals as well, sort of ended up meshing into one society, which is multicultural. Many people think that Tanzania is a land of black people, but it is actually multicultural, and this is because of the history of this place. This place, the very ground we're actually standing on right now, is a fishing village, used to be a fishing village, until 1862, when then the Sultan of Zanzibar decided to move some of his buildings here. He was the Sultan of Zanzibar, but decided to have a summer palace here and decided to build it here. He built one, and then he said he wanted another building, and in 1866 to 1867 built this very building that we're looking at over here. This is one of the old buildings of Dar es Salaam. This is called the Old Boma, and it is one of the very oldest buildings. I think it's the second oldest building in Dar es Salaam, because that summer palace that belonged to the Sultan of Zanzibar at the time, Majid Said, it was torn down. But this particular building has stood from 1867 all the way to today, and defines what this place has become over the years. Yeah, so it is definitely a very multicultural place that has seen a lot of history and a lot of meshing of cultures. Well, this particular wall is the port of Dar es Salaam. Behind it is the port of Dar es Salaam, and this place, this port of Dar es Salaam extends a very, very long way, actually. It's a very big place, but herein lies a lot of trade because, yes, it started as a fishing village, but then it grew to symbolize a lot of trade in the region. And as we speak right now, this place handles about 18 million tons of cargo every single year. And this has grown now to serve neighboring countries such as the Democratic Republic of Congo, Zambia. You have places as far as Zimbabwe, Malawi, you have Burundi, you have Rwanda, even Uganda is served by this port. Some of their goods come through here. So it's a very significant place. And the fact that it has evolved from this small fishing village, almost 200 years ago, now it is a place that is serving the region in terms of trade and bringing the people of East and Southern Africa together.
Quite a beautiful view behind us. In terms of the ferries, where to and how do they do this business of ferries, and what kind of revenue does it generate, particularly for the economy of Tanzania?
Well, this is termed as the crossroads to Zanzibar, as the locals put it here, because anybody who wants to go to Zanzibar is likely to use the ferry. So you have locals and foreigners, and this is quite a lot of people that we're talking about here, because just last year, Tanzania experienced 3.2 million foreign visitors that came to Tanzania. And most of these people will have likely gone to Zanzibar. And so you're talking about millions of visitors passing through the Zanzibar ferries here. So there are a number of private companies that have ferry services here. So if you do the math, just crossing for a foreigner here could cost anything from $80 all the way to $300, depending on the class of travel that you are taking.
So even the ferry, it's all about class.
Yes, it's about class. It's luxury. It's and in an hour and a half you're in Zanzibar in style, and so in terms of revenue, this means quite a lot of money.
And job creation also.
Absolutely, because Zanzibar itself is dependent on tourism. About 27% of the economy depends on tourism, and it brings in millions of dollars in terms of revenue. So this is a very, very significant place, and indeed, as they call it, the crossroads to Zanzibar. There are those who take airplane rides, but most people want to enjoy the ocean, want to enjoy the sea, so they usually come here and take a boat ride, both locals and foreigners.
Unfortunately, I won't be able to take a boat and enjoy, the nice cruise to Zanzibar. But there you have it. Tanzania has a lot to offer. Yes, South Africans and many people around the continent, they love Zanzibar and Mount Kilimanjaro. Therefore, come visit Zanzibar and get into that ferry.
Sophie Mokoena determined to get us on that ferry, come what may. Well, there was some sad news as well this week. Kenyan novelist, playwright and champion for African languages, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, passing away at the age of 87. His family announced his death in Atlanta in the United States. His literary work included Weep Not, Child, and Wizard of the Crow, delved into Kenya's complex past and emphasized the significance of African narratives. He was jailed and exiled and was also recognized as a potential Nobel laureate. Daniel Kijo has more for you.
Ngugi wa Thiong'o was a towering figure in literature and a relentless activist. His daughter said he lived a full life and fought a good fight. Thiong'o was born in 1938 during British colonial rule and witnessed the Mau Mau uprising, an experience that shaped his debut novel, Weep Not, Child, the first English-language novel to be published by an East African writer. A pivotal moment came in 1977 when he chose to write in his native Kikuyu, beginning the play I Will Marry When I Want, a critique of Kenyan inequality that led to his imprisonment. While in jail, he famously wrote his novel Devil on the Cross on a toilet paper. Following his 1982 exile, he became a professor in the United States, though Kenya remained central to his work. His satire Wizard of the Crow critiqued dictatorship, and his essays, notably Decolonizing the Mind, became influential texts on cultural liberation. Memorials are planned in Kenya and the US, where he taught for many years at the University in Irvine, California. President William Ruto recognized Thiong'o as a towering giant, and fellow writers like Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie praised his uncompromising brilliance. Daniel Kijo, SABC in Dar es Salaam.
Still ahead on Unwrap Africa, percussionist Khunou will speak to us about a journey that started almost 2 decades ago and why African music makes him tick. Joining us this week on Unwrapped Africa is Professor Adeyeke Adebajo, the author of a fascinating new book, a collection of essays, in fact, titled The Splendid Tapestry of African Life. Professor, thank you so much for being with us. Your book, you've described it basically as a sort of greatest hits collection, right? A body of work that spanned 3 decades. How did you put it all together?
Well, what I did, thanks very much and good to be with you, was to try to capture the zeitgeist, the spirit of the age. And so I've written tremendously in trying to play a public intellectual role on the history, the politics, the international relations, culture, film, sports, and travel of Africa and its diaspora. And it's the diaspora in the Americas, in the Caribbean, and Europe. And what I tried to do from all of these essays published in South African newspapers, in Nigeria, in Jamaica, and also in the West, is to try to put together what would capture that spirit of the time. And the Black Atlantic, which is the world of the diaspora I've just described, based on 5 centuries of slavery and imperialism, so the descendants of that diaspora.
I'm curious about your fascination in particular with South Africa and Nigeria, because they sort of emerge as pillars throughout your work, even in their relationship one-on-one, which we'll get into later. But why are the 2 countries such an important subject, shall we say, subject matter for you as a writer?
Well, I have a personal interest in the sense that I'm a Nigerian who has lived in South Africa for 21 years. Both countries happen to be the most energetic peacemakers in post-Cold War Africa. And you know, they have a very interesting and complex relationship because it's based on both cooperation and competition. So at the beginning, when Mandela was the president, there was a very negative relationship, the nadir of the relationship, when General Abacha hanged 9 environmental activists, including Ken Saro-Wiwa, and Mandela kind of took the lead in trying to punish Nigeria, and relations got terrible at that time. But there was a golden age in the relationship between 1999 and 2007, when Thabo Mbeki and Olusegun Obasanjo was the presidents, and they built the institutions of the African Union and NEPAD and made peace in Africa together. Since then, the relationship has kind of had its ups and downs. You know, South African companies, for example, have left Nigeria, like ShopRite and Southern Sun, and MTN was fined in 2016 for not moving on deregistering its SIM cards. But those relations have been tense recently, and they also compete in terms of economically. You know, Nigeria was until recently Africa's largest economy. South Africa just overtook Nigeria this year, and Nigeria is down to 4th place.
What do you think is at the heart, though, of the competition the rivalry, if we can call it that, be it from a state-to-state level, from a perspective or level of South African to a Nigerian personally? Because in the conversation in South Africa, when you talk about immigration, in particular illegal immigration, Nigerians are brought up quite a lot in the competition. Even in entertainment, recently we've seen South African performers versus Nigerian artists. What's at the heart of it?
Some of the competition is positive, some of it is negative, but it's not unusual. It's like the kind of competition you would get between Germany and France, or now between China and the US. And there are positive aspects of it, but it could also turn very negative. In terms of the Nigeria-South Africa, you know, during the apartheid era, Nigeria led a lot of the anti-apartheid activities, was chair of the UN Committee Against Apartheid for most of the time that it existed, organized a UN event in 1977, took in South Africans as students in Nigeria, was part of the frontline states. But subsequently, when South Africa gained independence, if you like, in 1994, South Africa under Mandela seemed to have displaced Nigeria in a way as the leader of Africa. So I think a lot of it stems from there, but there's also a very strong feeling in Nigeria that South African companies like MTN are pursuing a mercantilist approach where they benefit tremendously from the Nigerian market and don't open up the South African market to Nigerians. Of course, there's also a lot of xenophobia against Nigerians, and you've had sporadically attacks against Nigerians living in Pretoria and Johannesburg in 2017, in 2019, in 2021 as well. And you must have heard all of these reports and complaints that Nigerians are stealing our women, as is often said in the popular parlance. So that's really what the competition is about.
How do you heal it? How do you heal the rift between Nigeria and South Africa?
I think it has to be done both at a leadership level. So I talked about the golden age when Thabo Mbeki and Olusegun Obasanjo were cooperating very closely together. That is important, but it also has to be done on a people-to-people level, you know, encouraging civil society, business people between both countries to work together and creating the forum where they can feed into government policies. I think that's the way it has to be done.
And one of the other issues in Africa at the moment is about the continent telling and reclaiming its own story. You're an academic, you are a writer. What do you see as the role of the artist and the thinker in achieving that?
It's absolutely important that Africa does not fall off the map of the world's concerns. This is an age in which the US President Donald Trump has described Africa as a shithole continent, which he did during the first term of his presidency. And he's busy trying to dismantle a lot of the diversity and inclusion in the US. And it's also a period where multilateralism is under very grave danger. You know, Trump has withdrawn the US from the Paris Climate Agreement. He's withdrawn from the World Health Organization. They're talking about cutting support to the United Nations, and he's also got rid of the US Agency for Development, which has affected HIV programs across Africa. So in that kind of situation, it's very important that we get our act together as Africans and try to have strong countries and strong regional organizations like the African Union, ECOWAS, SADC. But it's also important that we strengthen our own institutions to be able to both develop and achieve strong regional integration. And the stereotypes about Africa, it's very important that Nollywood and the soapies that South Africans produce and the writers that Africa is producing recently also present a different image and a more positive and more balanced image of the continent. So it's not that the problems are not there, but there's more to it, and there's good
so Africa
and bad.
basically taking the lead in addressing the issue and how it is perceived.
Absolutely.
Professor Adeyeke Adebajo, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you very much.
Up next, we talk music when Unwrap Africa concludes. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. We've been asking you tonight, as we mark Child Protection Week in South Africa, how do you think we could end violence and protect children, not just in South Africa, but the rest of the continent? And those comments have been coming in, including from social media. Got one here from X, from Dennis Malele, who says the state should enforce laws that protect victims of domestic violence and child abuse, as well as National Treasury should allocate resources to support organizations that provide services for victims and perpetrators, I think that should say. Honorable Ngugi David says that the only solution is simple. Let it be compulsory that every Saturday and Sunday we go to church, no compromise. We turn all the taverns into church when we all pray, rather, because, well, we've lost that. But I do have something else here. Says, well, actually, this one here says the removal. We're going all over the place. Don't worry, we'll find our bearings in a moment. We've gone back to David Ngugi, but he was basically saying the nub of the tweet was that we perhaps need to all go back to church. David, well, that's a noble suggestion. Unfortunately, we know that sexual violence has also in the country reached the level of churches and other places of religious gathering. Well, as we come to the end of Unwrap Africa, we end on a musical note. Tonight, Khunou is a percussionist who represented South Africa in India. That was in April last year, mentored by Master Djembe Fola from Mali. Khunou's skills include playing the djembe, congas, as well as the bongo, and directing theatre plays. Let's speak to the man himself now about his art. That was quite a lot to get out, but you've been at it, Phemelo. Welcome, firstly, to Unwrap Africa. You've been at this for almost 20 years.
Absolutely.
You started in Mahikeng. Yes. Give us a brief sense of that journey, and why percussion when we know around Mahikeng there's always so much going on culturally? Why this instrument?
Yes, thank you so much for that. Firstly, it started off in Kimberley. It started off in church. So the Roman Catholic Church, once it started using the djembes now, so I fell in love with it the first time I heard it. So upon moving forward with that, because with Mahikeng, it's culturally rich, you know, with music. So just living around, I guess your environment impacts the kind of person you become. So that's how I got to advance my skills, because now there's a whole lot of people around in our communities. There's a whole lot of people who are experts in this whole thing that now and then you have your jam sessions and all that. But most of all, it just comes from the heart. I just genuinely love it. The first time I saw it, I just couldn't stop loving it until now.
And one of the people who've been credited as a mentor of yours hails all the way from Mali.
Yes.
How important is it for you that you weave that sort of thread through different parts of the continent into what you do?
First of all, this is djembe, what I'm holding here. It's indigenous to West Africa. So having a mentor from West Africa, where djembe is from, is indigenous, it means a lot, because now you are able to expand your creativity. I oftenly tell the people that I mentor that they must expand. They must listen to other cultures, other music. So with West Africa, you get the sense of the originality. And then once you get to South Africa, you know, our way of doing music is much slower than they are in West Africa. So we are able to make it more intimate and stuff like that. So having been mentored by people from Ghana and Mali and all that, it simply helps you to expand, because now it's all infinite. There's no full
Right.
stop into this whole thing.
And how do we find you? Social media, people who want to book you, etc., work with you?
Yes, I'm mostly active on TikTok. So it's at Pimza, so Z-A-R, Pimza. But on Instagram, it's at Master Jembe Fola. But I'm mostly active on TikTok.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Find him on TikTok and those other social media platforms. I've done enough talking. We're playing out with Phemelo Khunou. Bye-bye.